The Vivo X70 Pro Plus is a huge leap over its predecessor. It now gets IP68 dust and water resistance, stereo speakers, wireless charging, and even a WQHD Plus resolution display. While its price is higher than before at almost 80,000 rupees, the phone itself is a perfect example of what happens when Vivo goes all out. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the EJ Tech Show. I'm Sahil and this is my review for the new Vivo X70 Pro Plus. But before I get started, please do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future gadget reviews. The Vivo X70 Pro Plus successfully pulls off the sleek industrial look, and its design, at least from the back, reminds me of the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, namely a huge slab of glass and metal with a gigantic camera module. But unlike the S21 Ultra, it sits right next to a large reflective panel that doesn't really provide any functionality. However, I did take advantage of its mirror-like surface to take some nice selfies with the rear camera. The back panel also offers a smooth matte finish that feels really nice in the hand. It doesn't pick up any fingerprints or smudges, but is awfully slippery. At almost 9mm thick and 213 grams, the X70 Pro Plus definitely has some heft to it. The phone isn't as heavy as the S21 Ultra, but using the phone one-handed got uncomfortable after a while, at least for me. Still, for the most part, this is a very well-made handset. It's just a shame it doesn't come in a color other than black. Now, the right-hand side of the device has a power button and volume rockers. They've been placed well and are easy enough to reach. The AirPiece grill on the top sits almost flush with the bezel, and it plays a role in the phone's stereo speaker setup along with the speaker on the bottom. Like I said before, the X70 Pro Plus is IP68 rated, so it is water resistant. Cameras are where Vivo wants the X70 Pro Plus to stand out, and the setup is very impressive to say the least. You get 4 rear cameras, a 50-megapixel main shooter, a 48-megapixel ultra-wide lens with Vivo's signature micro gimbal, a 12-megapixel 2x optical zoom telephoto lens, and an additional 8-megapixel periscope telephoto lens with 5x optical zoom. Meanwhile, there's a 32-megapixel selfie camera on the phone's front. All 4 cameras at the back support optical image stabilization, which seems to be a first for any smartphone, and the main camera features an extra high transmittance glass for better night shooting capabilities. It's all controlled by Vivo's own V1 imaging chip, which is set to brighten photos and reduce noise. Vivo also retains its partnership with German lens maker Zeiss. This once again brings Zeiss's imaging system to the X70 Pro Plus's cameras, along with that T-Star anti-reflective lens coating, which prevents unwanted ghosting effects when you have the camera aimed at a bright object. But this time around, all the lenses on the phone get the T-Star coating and not just the wide lens. Now, if all of that wasn't enough, the camera app itself is jam-packed with various shooting modes that you most likely won't even end up using. There's 4 Zeiss-made bokeh modes, a pro mode, a night mode, super moon mode, an automatic macro mode, a Zeiss-based color optimization setting, a horizontal stabilization mode, and plenty more. Features and specs aside, the X70 Pro Plus has one of the most versatile camera systems I've ever experienced on a smartphone. The main 50-megapixel shooter dishes out pictures that are likable in all scenarios. HDR works very well, background blur is excellent, and colors pop out nicely. You can turn on Zeiss's color mode if you're after a more natural look, but I didn't really notice any significant differences, and if you ask me, Vivo's automatic AI color mode did the job just fine. When it comes to low-light photography, the X70 Pro Plus shines with flying colors. The Zeiss card comes into play here too. For instance, in this picture, the T-Star coating definitely helps in terms of sharpness and avoids the flare coming off the street lamp. Even without the dedicated night mode, images come out fairly bright and noise was kept to a minimum. However, with the night mode switched on, you get to see a strong bluish cast, and it kind of feels like the camera's AI just applied a tacky Instagram filter. As with the main camera, the color reproduction and dynamic range from the ultra-wide lens is very successful, but distortion is noticeable towards the edges of photos. The ultra-wide lens also performs macro camera duties. It always took a couple of seconds to find focus, but clicked some detailed close-up shots. Portrait shots are terrific, some of the best I've seen from a smartphone camera, and just like last year's model, the X70 Pro Plus lets you select the depth of field even after the image has been captured, which is pretty useful. However, at 2x zoom, the portrait mode can sometimes fail to focus, with the background defocus missing the mark, even in auto mode. The two optical zoom cameras enhance versatility and preserve detail very well. You can go up to 10x digital zoom without any major loss in quality and even push it all the way up to 60x digital zoom, but at this point the level of detail drops rapidly. Finally, let's talk about the 32 megapixel front camera. It's fine for sharing selfies on Instagram, but the dynamic range is definitely not up to par and needs some work. Colors also look a bit muted, both indoors and outdoors. The portrait selfie camera performs better and offers nice subject separation. As for video, you can record at up to 8K at 30 frames per second, 4K at 60 frames per second, and 1080p at 60 frames per second. The X70 Pro Plus does a great job with dynamic range and maintaining exposure as I pan the camera through a scene. Stabilization has also improved thanks to Vivo's third generation built-in gimbal. Footage always came out looking really steady, especially when compared to clips where I turned off the ultra stabilization mode. Just keep in mind that HDR video is limited to 30 frames per second no matter what resolution you choose, while gimbal stabilization is limited to 1080p at 30 frames per second. I also checked out the new horizontal image stabilization mode that Vivo has immensely hyped up. The basic idea is that the horizon of the final image does not change with the angle of the phone and always remains on the horizontal line even if I completely rotate the handset. It's an interesting feature to have on a smartphone, but I can't think of too many situations where I'd use it personally unless I decide to go bungee jumping or shoot a high-speed chase sequence, but I have a feeling that I won't be doing either of those things anytime soon. You can also record videos with the front camera, but it's capped at 1080 and I would like to have seen a 4K option included here. The X70 Pro Plus gets a big 6.78-inch panel that curves at the edges, beautifully balancing ergonomics and accidental touches. The bezels around the display are unobtrusively thin, and the only small interruption to this ocean of screen comes in the form of a century-aligned hole-punch front camera. The screen resolution goes as high as 1440 by 3200, which means it's on par with flagships like the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra and Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, both with 2K displays. It's also AMOLED, supports HDR10+ content, and gets up to 1500 nits of peak brightness, so colors are super punchy and outdoor visibility is not a problem over here. The screen refresh rate is 120Hz and it uses LTPO display tech to dynamically adjust refresh rate on the fly based on the content being displayed, conserving battery life wherever possible. For instance, some games will run at 120Hz, whereas something like an ebook will go down all the way to 1Hz. This is also one of the first screens to be made from E5 material, which reduces power consumption by a further 25% and offers higher brightness. There's also 240Hz touch sampling rate for faster gaming, and the under-display fingerprint scanner is also amongst the fastest ones I've tested. Simply put, there's not much more that I could have asked for from this excellent display, and the presence of stereo speakers makes watching content on the screen far more enjoyable. The X70 Pro Plus is the first smartphone in India to come equipped with Qualcomm's latest Snapdragon 888 Plus 5G processor. It's complemented by 12GB of LPDDR5 RAM and 256GB of UFS 3.1 storage, and all of this makes the Vivo X70 Pro Plus a force to be reckoned with. Everything feels super responsive with apps opening quickly and nothing grinding to a halt when you try to multitask. It's a similar story when it comes to gaming. The Adreno 660 GPU does a great job of handling graphic-intensive titles like Call of Duty Mobile, which defaults to the highest graphics settings and is perfectly playable with no major frame rate dips or stutters. The Snapdragon 888 Plus is also a 5G-enabled chipset, and the phone supports 10 5G bands, making it quite future-proof. As for battery life, the 4500 mAh unit gave me roughly 6 hours of screen on time after I turned on every bell and whistle: max resolution, high brightness, variable refresh rate, and always on screen. If I was shooting tons of photos, 4K and 8K videos and playing games, then the battery drains faster. Thankfully, with 55-watt charging speeds, the phone can be fully topped up in just 45 minutes. This is also Vivo's first ever handset to support wireless charging, which not only enhances its flagship factor, but also makes the X70 Pro Plus a nice option to have if you frequently use a Qi wireless charging pad or stand. The X70 Pro Plus runs Android 11 with the homegrown FunTouch OS 12 on top, and for those not familiar with Vivo's FunTouch, then you should know that it is one of the more aggressive Android skins out there. Let's just say it suffers from settings overload and just gives way too many options, which can be intimidating for a first-time Vivo smartphone owner. However, once you figure out where everything is, the user experience is absolutely fine. In fact, the haptic feedback over here is surprisingly good, and this version of FunTouch is definitely more toned down from previous iterations. Yes, bloatware is still present, but most third-party apps can be uninstalled. With its supercharged processor, stunning high-resolution display, and amazing camera chops, the X70 Pro Plus represents the pinnacle of what Vivo currently offers in its phones. Of course, at the same time, there's always room for improvement. Battery life could have been slightly better, front camera performance is a mixed bag, and FunTouch OS needs more fine-tuning. However, despite some of these limitations, the Vivo X70 Pro Plus is a unique flagship and gets a glowing recommendation from Editorji.